Good morning. This is Kara BC. Not even sure if this is of the Ministry of Uncover No More or not, because that's only a part of my life. And what I'm seeking to do is unify what a lot of people around me for years now has called two different worlds, when it is not and never has been to me. And therefore, much of the pain which is acted and reacted around me makes no sense to me. And to people that have known me a long time, I think it translates to something wrong with me, that I'm judging, that I'm picking apart. And I can see that perspective. I can see that that has been true at times. But what is equally true is that despite all of my desires to just flee my current situation as I was being literally spit out of an entire beautiful yet gravely erroneous society. It's such a mixed bag. Religion and capitalism and politics is such a mixed bag. It doesn't compute to me because it doesn't make sense. Literally. And the only way someone like me, not highly educated, but a seeker of knowledge and an appreciator of love and an honest, pure heart person, I think there's more of me in our society than anyone will ever admit. And a lot of what we call controversy isn't in our world. It just is crazy. It doesn't make sense. It never did. I think acceptance is a word that needs to be used. Here's the quandary. It can never be legislated. The Bible is true in one thing, and I'm going to be saying this a lot because you have to pick out a concept and say, this is true, and leave the rest, because too many of us have tried to unify worlds that will never. And it is because of erroneous dogma crammed down our lives. Christian religion. But it is what it is. It is what it is. And that, I think, is a society which must be kindly created despite it is what it is. But not in spite of. My society, and I speak for billions of people, are never in spite of. And the pure in heart see God. us and are who we are. But you cannot legislate acceptance. The law is for the lawless, is what I was going to say. That's in the Bible, but so is the pure in heart sees Goddess. The Bible, let's just admit it, and Jesus himself, I can point to his beautiful words and show you where he had to work within the framework of what perception was back then, and it is largely still this way now, is too male dominant. America is too male dominant in its religion. I have moved on. He has led me there. And I will tell you this. The poetry of Elizabeth Barrett Browning and Robert Browning is key. I have said in the past, recent past, last year, the year before, I wrote, these are Bibles, and it's true. In other words, I'm finding the truths of the modern day because there are some things that never unify. I am telling you that in all worlds, whether that be highly educated, disturbing, as in mental illness, those who will never add up to what the society thinks is smart and good and correct. I'm one of those. And so are some of my family members, and so we deal with being rejected just outright by the society, which is bullshit. We're beautiful, we're relevant, we work hard, and we need acceptance every bit as much as the greeter at Walmart, every bit as much as the highly intelligent doctor who is serving people day in and day out with his and her education. We, the stupid people, need to accept them, and they, by and large, already do accept us. And I think many of them, at least the doctors, the nurses that I have been around, and this is just one example of what I'm trying to say. The doctors and nurses that I've been around understand how the society is killing the little people. They already understand that, if they're humble. But I have stated that A White House Diary by Lady Bird Johnson is the Bible. It is on one of my blogs. And now I'm basically transitioning more into in all capital letters, the realm of the New Jerusalem. Now take the cap lock off. Therefore, declaring as girl, tribe Asher Judah elect, to be exact, from previous lives and my own life, and according to the book of 2 John, removing Antichrist. I'm telling the entire world system, these are Bibles. I can tell you, and have just done so before I read 4 sonnets from Elizabeth Barrett, Sonnets from the Portuguese, because there is a pain in this 44 sonnet piece that is relevant and always will be and always has been in the course of humanity. It is relevant. I, for whatever reason, can come into my place of peace that I have chiseled out and read A White House Diary by Lady Bird Johnson. And I have several blog articles to write on that particular website, Bible. And they're small. It's little snatches of living that this woman reminds us is relevant. And it is a larger concept, but the same idea for Beaty-Coffey of the Ministry of Uncover No More. I have a whole nother website for the Barrett Brownings, and it is a Bible that is relevant, always has been, always will be. And here is why. Love is love. And in the middle of all of the agony, all of the ecstasy, all of the morality, all of the immorality, we are we. We set the plumb line with the King of Kings, regardless of what history does to us in real life. Poets reside here, many of them, not all of them. Some poets I do not sanction as being of the New Jerusalem. They have their place. But if you and I are going to be a part of the New Jerusalem, it is going to refine us in a way that everybody regrets, with the exception of those of us who are leading in it. I said it again last night. I will never go to the place of hell in my life as Kara Ann Beaty-Coffey. And that hell would be it having been in any way wrong to accept the reality of the King and his New Jerusalem in this life story. And I find that Elizabeth Barrett Browning and Robert Browning speak that over the ages more than anyone I have encountered as far as poets. Lady Bird Johnson was called to be she in Texas. So you can go fuck yourself, all you politics, all you religious babblings, all you capitalistic, selfish gains ideas. I read this book in the middle of being perfect in your midst, lost my entire life of the past, thankfully already, because my daughters are freer than I was, and I have already finished mourning how much loss I personally have because of religion and capitalism together holding down people and saying that is the way when it is nothing of the sort. You make God, and God is useless. You are wicked and immoral, and we have it all over American society. And there comes a point in a life where you have to begin. I will warn us all that are of the New Jerusalem. I encounter you all the time. We outnumber them so much. It's social media that is giving them too much of a voice, in my personal opinion. They love war. We never did. We see the necessity of it in our shystery past. We're not going to a place where it is necessary in our future. And more I see why I've established websites that I can move slowly on. Because my transformation has as a little person who is meaningless and has always been in this world system, if I didn't do it exactly the way that was prescribed, I was going to be picked apart. I chose my own destruction. Yes, I did. And it's a little deeper than just simply resist in the political realm. But I'm not going to talk about that with a bunch of idiots who still like to fight. I'm going to dwell with the highest intelligence out there, whether you can read or not, whether you can understand or not, and that is peace on earth, goodwill to humankind, with the Prince of Peace. And that's just so simple. It's outlandishly hilarious. I would remind my YouTube, as I read 4 sonnets of one woman's beautiful poetry. I finished the 44 sonnets. I didn't even know when I started reading it that each verse is a sonnet. I didn't understand, but I learned a lot. Will I ever write something like this? I believe it is my chosen lifestyle to choose, to be, to dwell, to spend time with the living who are unified in my midst, and to provide color in a society that has been here since before creation. The universe would not be here if we weren't expressing this universe. Wouldn't be here. And people who prefer war, capitalism, to the point that just eats them alive, which social media is full of people that are eaten alive by the inability to meditate and to pull away from the world system. There would be no existence without what I'm talking about, and nobody will ever believe me. And I don't give a damn. Belief sucks. Perceptions kill souls. Acceptance is key. That's all I know for you. For me, the kaleidoscope is there. I see the beauty, the pain, the reality, yours, mine, all the different ones. And I will simply smile and say, you just keep proving what I say, what I read from other poets, what I write sometimes, but the answer is no, I will probably not write this intelligently as far as poets that are able to disconnect enough, focus enough to write a 44 sonnet piece. In another YouTube, I said, she has, right after this Sonnets from the Portuguese, I encountered Aurora Lay, a poem in 9 books. I said it was 9 chapters. No, it's 9 books. It's huge. So in a sense, I love life. It is my blogs, and I wondered if this wouldn't happen. Along about 2016, I started wondering this in my deep soul. It is my blogs that are speaking the truth of the entire New Jerusalem without words. It's intent of heart. It's an understanding. So I'm finishing up my work now for Sonnets from the Portuguese, and it is Sonnets number 11, 12, 13, 14. And here is what I wrote on July 7th, 2023. The skill to move past religious vow love is costly, yet necessary in a pure heart. I'm talking about the heterosexual marriage. There are so many discrepancies in that world. It must be abandoned. But that doesn't mean that faithful marriages in the Christian church, in the Catholic church, and otherwise aren't relevant. We need to turn your volume down. And many of you need to go to jail for incest, rape, embezzlement, just plain old crime. Crime in the city. You know how that is. Listen to the poets of the songwriters, and you'll come to the knowledge of your truth. And you'll know that your ass needs to end up in jail. You're having your day. I know what's on the other side. I think it is possible that atheists are good people who can choose to just die and be done. It is so hard to deal with this. I want you to understand something. The King of Kings himself said he would return. He made motion towards the angels, who he could call at any time and kill the entire Jewish population, and he didn't. The population that was going to crucify him, you understand. The wickedness. But that isn't how it works. And there's a point where it is the man. Yes, I just said in this video that the Bible is too male dominant. But there is a point, and there is a point where it is the Godhead, not the goddess head, that says, no, our power doesn't go there. The people's rage, trying to control what God, the male God, actually is. And I've repented my part of that. God, the actual God, isn't as powerful as they all say it is. It doesn't exist. Go to jail for your crime. And stop dragging the idea of God into this horrific thing called little a America that we're suffering through right now in 2023. Sonnets from the Portuguese by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. Numbers 11, 12, 13, and 14. I spontaneously did a lot of rune work through the 14th verse. I was at a coffee shop and I just began to choose runes. And the message is on the blog already as I gently move. And I just read one of her poems and put it on Twitter. I'll put it equally on my other social medias. My gosh, this woman is so deep. It's beautiful. I'm looking so forward to the future. The Soul's Expression. I read that today. I'm just like, okay, I can dwell. And I've felt extremely ignorant and stupid to establish websites the way I have. And now I'm finding out, though not as known nor will I ever be as someone like Elizabeth Barrett Browning or Lady Bird Johnson. I'm known. And they're not the ones that are doing YouTube saying, this isn't God He. And God He leads in saying, no. No, we don't have that power. That is yours, human men and women who are misbehaving because of much of what I just discussed. And misbehaving is a kind word because I'm about to read a poet who is lovely. So I'm backing away from the horror of life in small a America, though I did motion towards it. And yes, my love life, all of us, we're going to need those skills. So I am also mentoring as kindly as possible and as humbly as possible in the skills we need in our very private lives. We must learn to dwell the New Jerusalem and only minister to, as best as we can, the rest of that. It is, well, I appreciate some of the people that I'm following on Twitter. It's, and my for Twitter, it's Star Trek. It's a spaceship. Another way I have envisioned it in writing, sometimes in my poetry, is the island of Patmos, where John wrote Revelation, which is hard to understand. Irrelevant because of all of the apologists for theology that are just bunk. They're just ineffectual idiots. Stop talking already. Go clean the toilets. Oh my God. All right. Verse 11, Sonnet 11. And therefore, if to love can be desert, no, excuse me. And therefore, if to love can be desert, no, excuse me. I need another cup of coffee. And therefore, if to love can be desert, I am not all unworthy. Cheeks as pale as these you see, and trembling knees that fail to bear the burden of a heavy heart. This weary minstrel life that once was a girt, to climb Aornus and can scarce avail, to pipe now against the valley nightingale, a melancholy music. Why advert to these things? Excuse me, but I just told you why. And this is Beaty-Coffey of the Ministry of Uncovered No More. O beloved, it is plain I am not of thy worth, nor for thy place. And yet, because I love thee, I obtain from that same love this vindicating grace, to live on still in love, and yet in vain, to bless thee, yet renounce thee to thy face, which is what I've told you I will never do. And Robert Browning understood her and loves her still. And this love was only 15 years on this earth together, but it's universal, and it's universal. And doesn't always have a marriage to show the world that it's there. But it is there. It is truly there. Aspire to that in whatever life you've been given. And we are we. It is simple. It will reduce you. And it will grow. Remember, a grain of wheat falls to the ground. That is you and I. In love is love. Sonnet number 12. Indeed, this very love which is my boast, and which, when rising up from the breast to brow, doth crown me with a ruby large enow, to draw men's eyes and prove the inner cost, this love even all my worth to the uttermost, I should not love withal, unless that thou hadst set me an example, shown me how. When first thine earnest eyes with mine were crossed, and love called love, and thus I cannot speak of love even as a good thing of my own. Thy soul hath snatched up mine all faint and weak, and placed it by thee on a golden throne. And that I love, O soul, we must be meek, is by thee only, whom I love alone. And this is interesting because I told my partner, with all the children that we have had, you have reached this place, this verse 12, you have this sonnet number 12 of Sonnets from the Portuguese. We must remain humble and meek. I just said that literally to the man in my life who has really struggled with Uncover No More a month ago, as I was reading this and allowing it to divide me again. What we allowed to divide us is key. Western world. Sonnet number 13. And wilt thou have me fashion into speech the love I bear thee, finding words enough, and hold the torch out while the winds are rough between our faces to cast light on each? I drop it at thy feet. I cannot teach my hand to hold my spirit so far off. From myself, me, that I should bring thee proof in words of love hid in me out of reach. Nay, let the silence of my womanhood commend my woman love to thy belief, seeing that I stand unwon, however wooed, and rend the garment of my life in brief by a most dauntless, voiceless fortitude, lest one touch of this heart convey its grief. And what I said was goddess, mental anguish. And I have been drawing this very rune yet again yesterday and bringing a message from another, I believe it was poetry, another poet. So there is a message about to be produced and developed more and more from the Barrett Brownings. They are so wise. I'm glad they have found me over the ages. Sonnet 14. If thou must love me, let it be for naught, except for love's sake only. Do not say, I love her for her smile, her look, her way of speaking gently, for a trick of thought that falls in well with mine, and certes brought a sense of pleasant ease on such a day. For these things in themselves, beloved, may be changed or change for thee, and love so wrought may be unwrought so. Neither love me for thine own dear pities, wiping my cheeks dry. A creature might forget to weep who bore thy comfort long, and lose thy love thereby. But love me for love's sake, that evermore thou mayest love on through love's eternity. Now I'm going to talk about something practical as I conclude, and you're not going to like it, sexual world, because if there is one thing I did and do, it is never, ever give in to the sexual world of objectification of people. And I have the scars in my emotional life to prove it, because I don't know anybody hardly who understands just a normal sexual relationship with a partner without all the baggage. And people are too ashamed to admit it, so they walk off of love entirely because of sexual misunderstanding in the modern day. This is why I said for some years I hate sex. I don't hate it anymore. My season of hating all sorts of love, including sexual, is over, and I am fully in the New Jerusalem. There are only kind questions here. There are never answers. We look to the universe to continue to divine us. This is Kara, and plain and simple.